For this update, I'd like to kind of go over all of the work that's been done in the past week or so, and then give you a little preview of the order that things are going to be going back together. We're about at the end. We're just crossing over maximum disassembly here, and we'll start putting it together here very soon. So on this one, I did get all of the surface rust I could find cleaned up and touched up, and I put some paint on the welds just to kind of clean that up a little bit. Had a little bit of silver left over from a prior project, so it kind of matches. There was quite a bit of rust here. It wasn't all the way through yet, but the layer in the middle was rusted out pretty good, so I cleaned all that out. I cut out that little window, and I'm going to put that piece right there in place. This will be super easy to weld right now while it's laying horizontal like this. But also on this piece, we started making our cuts for the merge. There's going to be a window on the top so that this can be welded. So that this can be welded from above, and then we'll close this all up. I've got that piece fabricated as well. As the beginning of the merging here. So, and you'll see that over on the other side, on the car, there's a similar match right there. So, this guy's pretty well ready to go. I put some rust treatment on the spots where I could find any surface rust, and all the surfaces that I am aware of that need to be welded have been cleaned. There's glue. Besides the seam sealer here, they used some type of adhesive that hardens to hold those together. Now I'm not going to have that. It was brittle and it broke pretty easily, but I'm assuming it's somehow helped them with the assembly process. So this guy is almost ready to go. The first part that's going to go on the car is this. Again, I inadvertently cut that there, thinking I was going to need to take this top brake brace off. So I just had Kurt weld that back on. That's all ready to go. This piece here, I made some final adjustments to it and cleaned up the rust, and also spent a fair amount of time with that. This will be the second piece that goes on, and then once those two are in place and reasonably tacked, then the big one's going to go. And I realized just as I was looking at this a few minutes ago that this is probably going to be in the way. So looks like I can remove it fairly easily just with the one band clamp down there and then that one cross brace. So this is going to come off to support the install of this piece. The new piece I'm going to have go underneath this, so I'm going to have an overlap of about this much. I cut the other one right at the end here. I don't know that I'm going to necessarily stitch weld or need to weld that all the way across. I'll do something to bind it up, either adhesive or rivets or stitch welding. This one, obviously once this piece is put in, then this can get pushed back up into place, and then that piece over there is going to come over the top of this. So I'll have a short overlap just in the sheet metal there, so I don't have to be super precise about it, and then I can choose the method that I want to use to bind those together. It's going to be quite the job. Also, I skipped this part. When I put this in, it's going to have to be welded here, which is right here. Just a second there. Right there. And that's going to be welded from the top, so cut a little window in it that will weld back in once that's done. That takes care of most of the big pieces. This piece, I think I've showed this before, but it's going to go over here, and this piece has been welded in and apparently not too well painted, but at least there I got some paint on it so the welds won't rust. Then we have this piece, which will go right here. And again, it will not be conducive to installing having that attached while we install, so I had to remove that. And then I think that is all the pieces except this one, which will go right here. And I cut the other one there, so it'll line up perfectly with that. And that allowed me to get underneath here and cut this guy. So hopefully, once all of those, there's going to be, I don't know, at least 2, maybe 3 rounds of welding visits. Once all that stuff is in, then going a little bit further into the project, this piece here will go on the outside right about here, and that'll get welded on, and then it'll get capped off with this piece here, which is just the sheet metal that goes on the outside. Those 2 pieces haven't been through fine prep yet, because that's gonna come a little bit later in the process. So that's where it is. I do need to refine this a little bit. I've cleaned all the seams, and so one of the other things I'm definitely going to do shortly is test fit the window and then figure out exactly what this needs to look like. I don't have an exact plan yet, but I have enough of it out of there now to know that if I set the window down, that I'm going to get a good read on whether this trajectory is right, and that is going to happen before major welding. That'll give me an out in case I need to make any final adjustments there. Anyway, there's a lot to come, and I don't know, next time you see this thing, we'll either be zapping things together or you'll get a view of what's happened from the welding, or the pasting, shall we say. Okay, so I've test fit this piece. Actually, it's probably more than a test fit now. I think I got it lined up good. This piece also fitting well. I ended up putting in a few rivets to hold it in place, just to get rid of all the vice grip clamps. I'm gonna max out my vice grips here if I didn't do something. Plus, it's out of the way. And as you can see, I brought the windshield in, and it's just a test fit. But I wanted to show you, see if you can see this, but right about here to about here, the windshield is actually touching the metal. And I look down here, this looks okay. Right here, it looks okay over here. So I'm gonna have to move some of this down. So I put some tape in here. I'm going to mark which parts need to go down and by how much. I'm thinking between 1/8 and 1/4, maybe 1/4 inch in the high in the high spots. This is probably from a little bit of the crash impact over here, pushing this up just a little, but it's just sheet metal, so hopefully with a little bit of strategic bending I should be able to get that down. Very hard to see that arc without the window, without a template. So I'll get that done. And then I got to start figuring out how to look from the inside to see if it's touching the mount, or if it's close enough to touching the mount. So one thing at a time. Just a quick visit to pull apart this morning to get some parts, and while I was at it, I thought I would visit the donor car for the bumper car, for the front bumper and the piece of the frame there. Well, the reason I came today was to acquire these, which I've removed. They're the brackets that hold the radiator at the top. Best I can tell, those are the same between all these LX cars, all the way back to the early 300s, of which this is one. Okay, it's a nice day in March 13th, and I'm out shopping. So this is the first load of new parts that came back. Got these from Mars Auto Parts. Everything, well, these parts are from Pull Apart, but everything else is from Mars. Windshield wipers, I believe that part's damaged. I know the motor is completely destroyed. The hood hinges were bent. Both knuckles were broken. So it's nice to be able to get an aftermarket or a OEM part as opposed to an aftermarket part, and the heat shields being basically intact, and probably, I'm sure, at least one of those wheel bearings. And these wires for the ABS are going to be really handy too, because they were completely destroyed on the driver's side. And then getting the cowl cover for 40 bucks was a pretty good deal. So this is just the first wave. I've ordered more stuff, and then there's another order, so I got at least 2 or 3 more waves of stuff coming to get the bulk of it. I managed a test fit on the frame section here the other day, and I came to the conclusion pretty fast that I was going to need to have this piece put on before, because you won't be able to get inside. You can see it real clearly here where the paint ends. There's welds here that are going to need to be done, and you won't be able to do it once this guy's installed. So I went about the business of fitting this piece. You can see it's clamped in by a bunch of vice grips. It's not quite perfect, but it's close enough, I think, that everything will close up for welds. I had to bend the bracket. This is where the lower door hinge goes, and I had to bend this bracket underneath. It was pushed in a little bit, and then I did the last 1/4 inch by just putting the bolts in there. So once we weld that, it'll be good. So that'll hold that. So that means I'm waiting for the welding, my son to be available to weld. And in the meantime, I went ahead and straightened this out, the door striker, or whatever you call that thing. So I made a little cardboard template to get my positioning based on what was on the other side, and then did this one to match. That's why the frame machine's right here. This was child's play for the frame machine. It just tugged it straight out. I had to do a little tugging on the one separate than the other one to get it positioned right, but it's pretty good now. I'm on the fence about whether or not I should try to do something with this. It's pretty awkward to reach in there from the back. You technically can through that gap, but it's not going to be easy to get a good hammer strike on it. So I have a feeling that it's probably just going to stay like that. I'm not going for any style points here. If I don't know, I'm looking at this right now. Maybe I'll have to do a little bit of last minute adjusting here if the door is hitting it, but not too worried about that. I think it'll be okay. So in the meantime, I was doing other things. This door interior panel was broken actually from the crash. There's a crack here. You can kind of see the welding, and I welded it on both sides, just on the plastic welded it on the idea that it's down low and no one's going to see it. I also discovered there's a crack here, and several of these are separated. I still have one that's not going to be, I'm going to go without it because I think enough of these are tied together. It'll keep it from vibrating. I got these two. I actually borrowed some plastic from, I don't know, one of the old hood cowl to melt in there to close that up and to close that one up. But now the outside is attached to the inside as it should be. And hopefully, when you look at this, yeah, this still sticks out just a little bit. Oh, I see. I might have one more to do there to get that right. Anyway, that's where that is. And I've also made another trek to the junkyard, and I'll show you those parts in a minute. Okay, these are the seats that I picked up yesterday. Got a pretty good deal, I think, on these. They were 160 bucks a piece, and I was pricing out airbags, and I was having a hard time finding the airbags for that kind of price. So I'm pretty happy with what these are. I mean, they're not perfect. They're a little bit dirty, but I think that can be cleaned up. It also seems like there's going to be some work. At least one of these is probably going to need a replaced or recharge, because it's been it was activated during the crash. So I'm really happy with this color. It's kind of funny though, because I was planning on getting the bags and redoing my seats, and so I had purchased a set. I have the rest of them, but here's just one piece of seat covers from a guy who had it was actually a detail shop, and they had upgraded his seats to I don't know, Hellcat or something like that, and so it was a plain old SXT, and so they had the whole seat cover set. I may still use those, the back seat parts, so that I don't have leather in the back and this cloth in the front, but that's what I've got so far. I think the next thing you'll see parts wise is I've got a dash on order, so it's not here yet. I'll probably have that I don't know, either later today or early next week.